We all have those brands we love, the ones we really trust. But what happens when one of them makes a huge mistake? Does that instantly make them a bad company? It's such a tricky question, and today we're going to unpack that fascinating, messy reality of corporate stumbles and what true responsibility really looks like.
So let's just get right to it. Here's the big question for today. Can a company still be considered good even after it messes up? Look, the simple answer is yeah, but the real answer, the one that truly matters, that's a whole lot more complicated. To really figure out what happens when things go wrong, we first have to understand what right even looks like. So let's start with the ideal, right? The promise. In a perfect world, what does a great corporate citizen actually do for us? You see, a super company is playing a much bigger game than just profits. They're out there proactively protecting the environment, building sustainable practices for the long haul. They're taking actions that genuinely help the communities they're a part of. But the bedrock for all of it, the thing that holds it all together, is earning our trust through open and honest communication. And we absolutely see this ideal in the real world. Think about Patagonia. They don't just sell you a jacket. They famously ran a Don't Buy This Jacket campaign to get people thinking about sustainability and repairing their gear. Now that is weaving environmental protection right into the fabric of your business.
And then you've got a giant like Coca-Cola. A company that size can use its incredible reach for massive positive impact. Take their initiatives to provide access to clean drinking water for millions of people. That's the promise in action, but on a truly global scale.
Okay, but here's where that ideal just crashes right into reality. The promise is safe products, a clean environment. The problem? Product recalls, pollution, and just plain poor choices. And this conflict is exactly what we're here to understand.
So now, let's face the reality. What actually happens when these good companies go wrong? Because really, it's not a matter of if it will happen, it's a matter of when.
And let's be clear, these mistakes aren't just some abstract thing. They create very real pollution in our neighborhoods. They can lead to unfair treatment of the very people who make our products. And in the worst cases, they result in unsafe products that put all of us at risk. The consequences are incredibly tangible. This really puts it all in perspective. Just think about your friends for a second. You don't expect them to be perfect, do you? Of course not. You expect them to be honest, to own their mistakes, and to genuinely try to do better. So why on earth would we demand anything less from the companies we support?
And that brings us to the most crucial moment of all, the response. You see, the initial mistake is just an event. It's what a company does next that truly defines its character. So let's break down the anatomy of a good response.
So how does a company actually earn back our trust? Well, there's a pretty clear path. It has to start with acknowledging the failure, no excuses. Then they have to actively address the harm that was caused. But here's the critical step. They have to make real systemic changes so it never, ever happens again. And finally, none of that matters if they don't communicate every single step openly with us.
Let's make this totally real with the Mattel toy recall. The discovery was a parent's absolute nightmare. Unsafe levels of lead paint and dangerous magnets in toys for little kids. The mistake was enormous. Millions of these unsafe products were already out there in homes. But their response? It hit every single step we just talked about. A massive public recall and a direct apology. And crucially, they followed through, completely overhauling their safety systems. That is the path to accountability in action.
So, we've seen the ideal, and we've waded through the messy reality. How do we bring them together? Well, this brings us to the synthesis, a much smarter way to think about what good actually means when it comes to a company.
And here is the real takeaway. Mistakes are going to happen. The true test isn't perfection, it's progress. The super companies we admire aren't the ones that never, ever fail. No way. They're the ones that learn from that failure and use it as fuel to get better.
So, this really changes how we should think about corporate stewardship. It's not about having some perfect, spotless track record. It's about a constant commitment, a promise to own your failures, to fix what's broken, and to never, ever stop evolving into a more responsible company.
And that's really the ultimate bottom line. It's not about reaching some mythical destination where you're perfect. True stewardship, true corporate character, it's found in the journey itself, that constant process of learning, improving, and striving to be better. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Based on this whole journey, from promise to reality and back to trust, which companies do you really trust? And maybe more importantly, why? Is it because they're perfect, or is it because of how they've handled their own imperfections?